Greetings from the Nerd Castle Penthouse, Lead, South Dakota. LEAD, that's the name of my hometown in the Black Hills at 5,000 feet altitude. It's just a little bit of a talk to you about writer's block. My experience with writer's block. It used to be, in the olden days, writers were kind of romanticized figures. I guess that reached its heyday in the time of F. Scott Fitzgerald and Ernest Hemingway during the Roaring Twenties. Works like The Great Gatsby and For Whom the Bell Tolls. We still think of those people sometimes when we think of writers. I knew a great writer. Well, I didn't know him, really, but I took a course from him in the 1980s. His name was Isaac Bashevis Singer. And I'd never heard of him, before I took the course, and then I took the course. And afterwards, I began to read his stuff. Years later, I started to wonder, who was this guy? And I read a whole lot of his stuff, and wow, there's some awful memorable stuff there. Some awful memorable stuff. I wonder if he ever had writer's block. I wonder if Hemingway ever had writer's block. I wonder if F. Scott Fitzgerald ever had writer's block. I wonder what the heck exactly is writer's block. I will tell you one thing that I know is a pretty good cure for writer's block, and that is to get a book contract so that you're obligated to complete a piece of work by a particular time. You're actually obligated to someone to complete it. In fact, I find that to be immensely helpful, almost essential for me to get motivated to write. Writing is my job. It is my occupation. And therefore, when I have work to do, I do it just like any other worker does. I probably get paid less than most of them. I get paid roughly the same as a starting salary teacher in the state of South Dakota. Some years a little more, some years a little less, depending upon how many of you buy my books. And that is one of the things about writer's block. I guess, we think of writers as these creative sorts, creative artistes with certain temperaments who go to certain kinds of parties and associate with certain kinds of people and behave in certain very specific ways. And oftentimes it seems the stereotype involves some sort of substance abuse. Although I have found that I write a heck of a lot better when I'm completely sober than I ever did when I was under the influence of anything like a chemical. So, except for Diet Mountain Dew, is that substance abuse? I mean, some people would say that it is, I guess, but this is the way that writers in many minds are still associated. They're romanticized, and to some extent I think that's kind of cool. I remember when I lived in Miami, the Cubans and the South Americans in general and a lot of the Latinos seemed to romanticize writers and writing, and they still do, and it shows up in their dialects and their writing. Great writers, some of them. Just amazing the way that they say things and the way that they express things. And a lot of them thought that was still a romantic thing, even as recently as the 1990s. Whereas in a lot of other parts of the country here in the United States, writing is, for example, if you meet someone of the opposite gender, particularly if you're a guy and you meet a girl, she will ask you, if she asks you what do you do and you say you're a writer, it's kind of off-putting because the impression is that you probably don't make very much money, and the impression is probably correct. So, but when it comes down to actually the writer's block problem, I have been faced with that from time to time. I just don't feel like writing. I put it off. I do all sorts of other things. I clean the bathroom. I vacuum the floor. I paint the deck. Mow the lawn. Make sure the tire pressure is correct in big number 8. And all these things that, you really have to do if you're going to live a decent life. I mean, you're not going to go forever without cleaning your bathroom or vacuuming your floor or dealing with your deck maintenance or dealing with your tires. I mean, you're asking for trouble then, but you do it over and over and over, and you do anything you can to avoid writing, like make stupid videos on YouTube. Well, the thing about that is that when you have a contract, when you actually have an obligation to someone, it's a lot easier to just sit down and say, I got to do this, I got to do it, so I'm going to just start working, and even if it comes out garbage, even if it comes out nonsense, I'm just going to start doing it, and I'm going to start bashing stuff out. So you do, at least I do. And after just a few minutes, almost inevitably, I find myself getting interested in the work. And I find myself sometimes getting preoccupied with the work to the point where I almost don't even get up out of my chair to go to the bathroom. Of course, if you're a male in your 60s, you will go to the bathroom. The urge will drive you there through brick walls, through time warps. There's no way to stop you from going to the bathroom. But the point is, you go real quick, and then you get right back to that writing. So, at least that's what happens to me. Right now, I don't have any active publishing contracts, except something that I'm working on in the page-proof stage, which I'm expecting pretty soon, and it'll give me something to do. But I'm finding myself now suffering from a quite different problem. Instead of writer's block, I'm going through a little bit of writer's withdrawal. I'm kind of craving a good piece of work to do, and it looks like something's going to get approved. It's going to be kind of fun to do it. And I shouldn't have a big problem with writer's block. You really do have to be interested, too, in what you're writing about. I mean, it really you have to have kind of a passion for it in order to get over writer's block. Because if you're really driven to write about something and express yourself on that page or on that computer screen anymore, you're not going to have a problem with that. So sometimes, you just have to, it's just like you have to get out of bed in the morning sometimes when you don't feel like doing it. You have to go to work some days when you don't feel like doing it, and it's the exact same thing with writer's block. In the end, you just have to put your butt down on that chair and go to it. There's really no other cure for it that I know of. Stan Gibilisco, signing off. Till next time. So long.